In recent years, we've seen Kia's styling in particular take on really a very anti-generic, angular, interesting sort of trend, and every vehicle they're doing looks a little bit different, which is fantastic. Welcome to Out Motorsports, channel for cars as you are. My name is Jake, and I'm here with the 2025 Kia K4. K4 is the replacement for the Kia Forte compact sedan, competes with things like the Toyota Corolla, the Honda Civic, and its platform mate, the Hyundai Elantra. Now, I'm not standing outside the car talking because it's cherry blossom peak bloom in Washington, D.C., and really getting out of the city today is just a terrible idea. So instead, you're getting me straight from the gym. I'm glad you can't smell me right now in the car. It just smells like new car because this has 1,900 miles on it. So, if you've been to D.C., we're in Rock Creek Park, and we're just going to bebop around and talk about this whole car and its styling and how it is to drive. So first things first, let's talk about the styling. This is a very divisive car. I think a lot of people either love it or hate it. I'm a little more in the hate it camp simply because I thought the Forte was really cleanly styled, but maybe it was so clean as to not have much personality, and if nothing else, this does stand out in the segment. It does look to me like it went to the gym and did kind of a lot of squats and nothing else. It's got a big butt, which not a problem with that. However, it doesn't look super cohesive. It's a little more flared and wide and muscular at the rear, and then the front's a little more narrow, and I just don't think that necessarily works for it. They are doing a hatchback version of this car. This is considered a sedan. It looks a little bit like a liftback, but it's not. It's got a regular trunk. They're doing a hatchback version. It's coming apparently later this year, early next, and that I think looks a little more cohesive. You've got the hidden rear door handles in the C-pillars, which are an interesting touch, kind of neat, but then the front ones are regular door handles. Just the whole thing, the front and rear halves look totally different to me, and I'm not sure I'm digging it. However, the width overall is something that Kia points out. Their whole focus with this car is styling, space, and tech. They're not talking about the driving experience, which we'll come back to in a second. So space-wise, this is the widest in the segment, and it's got a lot of interior room, which is nice. The other thing is that it's the longest in the segment, so for better or for worse, it is kind of a big car. And that means you get a lot of second row leg room, which is really nice if you're carrying passengers around a lot. However, you've got this kind of raked roofline, and the first complaint that I have with this K4 is that I cannot get a great seating position in it. I said this with the Toyota Crown Signia the other week, and now we're doing it in a Kia. I just don't fit very well. So it's a little frustrating because if I want the seat as far back, let's just do this and show you, this is where I'm comfortable for my legs, but then I can barely reach the steering wheel. Having a straight arm grip on the steering wheel is very unsafe. The safest way to position your seat is to have your wrist right here draped against the top of the wheel. So if I go close to where I can do that, now my legs are kind of splayed out, which is not a cute look. So just one of those things, if you're longer of leg or whatever, just kind of give it a test sit, see how you fit. Also with that raked roofline, headroom can be a little bit tight, especially in the back seat. I've got enough headroom here, but only just. And then the other thing with all this, with the sedan, the trunk is actually a teeny bit smaller by volume than the outgoing Forte. Not a lot, but just a teeny bit. So just things to think about. The styling was clearly a priority here. And then as far as the tech in the car, it's pretty good. There's a lot going on here, a lot of nice features, a lot of extra options that this one has. This is a GT line, which means you get all the sporty bits, except you don't get the turbo engine. More on that in a second. Plenty going on here. So 2 screens that make up your gauge cluster, and then this mix of like climate control and infotainment, and that is a choice. I think it all works pretty well, although the climate control gets partially blocked by the steering wheel rim, so but you do get physical buttons down here, which are fabulous, and then you get some other buttons here for your basic functionality and your volume control. So that I do like. You've also got a lot of their highway driving assist, driver assistance tech, which is really good, some of the strongest in the industry still. And then lots of other nice little features here. So this one being a GT line has a lot of extras that your lower trims may not get, but I've got a power moonroof, I've got Harman Kardon sound that is pretty good for this class of car. And then I've also got heated and ventilated seats and a power driver's seat with 2-position memory. Okay, so speaking of the engine, we must talk about the driving experience. And I do have a small window in which I may floor it. Before we get into Rock Creek Park and like run over cyclists. This is the base engine of the two. So this is a 2-liter naturally aspirated 4-cylinder that makes 147 horsepower and 132 pound-feet of torque. and that is paired exclusively to an intelligent variable transmission, an IVT. It's a CVT with no gears. You do have a manual mode, you do have paddle shifters because this is the GT line, and it doesn't really matter. This is very clearly more horsepower than torque. Off the line, it is indeed kind of sluggish because there's not as much torque. You have to really work it to get into the power band. And it's a little drony. It's not the fastest thing in the world. However, if you're using this mostly as a city car, it's more than adequate. And frankly, unless you're trying to do some wild passing maneuvers on the highway, or, I don't know, go race it against, or if we're gonna do like street racing with our Kias, other than that, it's pretty adequate. The CVT helps it, sorry, the IVT helps it do pretty well around town. You can kind of just let it do its thing and you're not gonna really notice it. It's fairly unobtrusive. So it's actually okay. And then it does pretty well for fuel economy on the highway. We got well into the 30s. I did a little 100-mile round trip yesterday, just kind of bopping around out to Maryland, and it felt fine. So your only real sluggish point is going to be like merging on the interstate, and even then just like put your foot in it. Just let it go. I guess I should have mentioned this is front wheel drive, but like, yes, that's what you get. It is a little loud under acceleration. And if you want more acceleration, there is the full-on GT, which is a turbo 1.6 four-cylinder that's faster. I don't know. This one is not especially zooty, but it's fine. It's totally, totally fine. Now, the other thing with this being a GT line, this and the GT get a multi-link rear suspension versus the torsion beam that the rest of the cars get. So it is, in theory, going to handle better than the other cars. Of course, I'm doing nothing of the sort to test that right now, but it does ride well. I think the ride quality is very good, both on the highway and in the city. It soaks up bumps well, handles imperfections well. It feels pretty good in that regard. And, you know, our roads are kind of hit or miss depending on where you're going. Now, steering-wise, the steering is fine. The rack has okay weight to it. I wouldn't say it's the most communicative in the segment. I would still award that to the Honda Civic, but I think it is pretty good steering. You do have a drive mode button here that will put it into sport. That will give you heavier steering that, I don't know, it adds weight to the electric rack. I don't really care. In any case, feels fine. The steering is accurate enough. You're not gonna complain about it. And then the brakes are actually a really good high point here. They have a really nice initial bite. The pedal feel feels good, very confidence inspiring. So in general, I think this is a pretty good car to drive. Where I have a little issue is with the visibility out the rear. The rear deck, like the actual parcel shelf itself, slopes up, which means half of what you see in the rearview mirror is headrests and like the shelf, the carpet, not window. So it's a little bit of a pain. You can still see plenty, but it's an odd design choice. The whole thing just makes me feel like this was meant to be a hatchback first, and then they made the sedan for silly Americans that hate hatchbacks. The hatchback is the one that I think I'm gonna like a lot more. But in general, I think there's a lot to like here. It is a good city car. It's a pretty good highway car. You do get a little bit of tire noise at highway speeds. You know, obviously this is an economy car, all things considered. Not gonna be the most sound deadening going on. Can be a little loud, but not all bad. Lots of tech, lots of features, especially if you get the GT line. And, you know, there's a lot to like here if that's what you care about more than the outright driving experience. It is indeed kind of numb, kind of dull. So in that case, but if you don't care about that so much and you want the stuff that Kia is leading with, space, tech, style, and you like the style, I think this is a lot of car for the money. And anyway, those are my thoughts on the 2025 Kia K4 GT line. Thank you for coming along with me on this post-gym, post-bagel excursion to bebop around the city a little bit and not get anywhere near the National Mall and the Tidal Basin and everywhere that tourists are, because I can't leave the city today because it's just a mess. In any case, we'll be back to the regular format, if we even have one, next week with whatever next car I have. And be sure to like, share, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. And follow us on the other socials. And if you want to join us for some events, both in person and online, head over to outmotorsports.com. We've got a whole community of LGBTQ automotive enthusiasts and motorsports competitors who would love to be your new best friends. And we've got a whole membership program with discounts. We love discounts from our partners like OG Racing and FCP Euro. So members enjoy special pricing because we love that. And that'll do it for this one. Till next time, stay safe, be well. I'm gonna go home and get not gross, and we'll see you for the next one.